For more than a decade, people watched Kandi Burruss and Todd Tucker build a blended empire that looked unbreakable from the outside. But when the divorce news dropped, the internet froze. After 11 years of marriage, the couple who once prided themselves on beating the odds were suddenly calling it quits. And absolutely nobody believed the official explanation told the whole story. Fans immediately flooded timelines asking the same thing. What happened behind the scenes? Because the timing felt off, the announcement felt too neat.
I'm up and down. And to be clear, yes, I filed Friday, but, this is something that, has been brewing for a while.
And the silence around it felt like a giant red flag. People who followed Kandi's career noticed something else. The split came right after she stepped back from The Real Housewives of Atlanta, a show that documented their highs, lows, and every uncomfortable moment in between. Without cameras rolling, something had changed, and fans could feel it. Something didn't add up, and people sensed that the marriage had been unraveling long before the public ever heard the first whisper. But the real story didn't start with the announcement. The cracks started forming years before, in small ways at first, then in bigger, more obvious ways that the cameras couldn't hide forever.
Of course, every man would be like, all right, cool, that's my baby, she only want me.
Yeah.
And every one of those cracks was leading to the same inevitable moment. But that wasn't the beginning of the downfall, because the tension inside their marriage was building long before anyone realized. Behind the red carpets, the restaurants, the family photos, and the brand deals, Kandi and Todd were slowly drifting apart. On the show, Kandi joked about how they were barely intimate, once a week if that, but fans didn't laugh. It sounded like a marriage slipping into roommate territory. It didn't help that they were living half their lives in different states, Todd filming his projects, Kandi touring or producing or filming something else entirely. People close to them often said the same thing. They were busy. Too busy for date nights, too busy for real communication, too busy to fix the distance forming between them. And when distance creeps into a marriage, suspicions aren't far behind. Kandi herself once admitted she wondered if cheating could be happening during those long-distance stretches. She didn't accuse Todd outright, but the thought was there.
I've been going through it. Life has been lifing me, okay? I filed for divorce on Friday. And,
And thoughts like that don't disappear. They stick, they grow, and they change the way you see a person. And fans, they detected the shift immediately. The long captions got shorter. The photos of each other slowly disappeared. Trips they once proudly shared online were suddenly private. Something in the marriage had changed, and not in a small way. But this wasn't the only shadow over their relationship, because the whispers about Todd's motives had been trailing him since day one. The moment Kandi introduced Todd on the show, the audience split into two camps. Some thought Todd was a hard-working producer who genuinely cared for her. Others believed he had a habit, a pattern, of leveling up through relationships. And Kandi's own mother, Mama Joyce, was the loudest voice in that second group. Mama Joyce didn't hold anything back. She said Todd was using her daughter. She said he'd stopped working after getting with Kandi. She said every relationship Todd ever had ended the same way.
I stopped liking you. I stopped respecting you. At first, you just seemed to be a working guy, and then after you got with Kandi, it's just like the work.
With him climbing a little higher each time. Her disapproval became a storyline of its own, turning family dinners into emotional minefields and putting strain on a marriage that was already struggling to find its footing. Then came the ex, the old Facebook posts, the claims that he talked badly about Kandi before ever dating her, the accusations that he saw her as a come-up, a ticket into the Atlanta circle. The ex's words, harsh, messy, and personal, resurfaced online years later, breathing new life into the narrative that Todd was never in this relationship for the right reasons. Even fans who defended Todd couldn't ignore the fact that these rumors never fully disappeared. They faded, then came back stronger, then disappeared again.
So I think you really should do that and not wait.
Only to resurface when the divorce news broke. Everyone wondered whether the seeds of doubt planted years ago had finally started growing inside Kandi's mind. But opportunist rumors weren't the only thing haunting this marriage, because soon a much bigger storm was forming, one that centered around a woman whose presence raised more questions than answers. This is where everything changes, because for many fans, the name Fatum Alford became the moment the story turned from marital tension into full-blown speculation. Fatum wasn't just a friend of the show, she wasn't just another face appearing at events. She was around, a lot, too much in the eyes of some viewers. And once people noticed the pattern, they couldn't unsee it. Photos of trips, vacations where she appeared unexpectedly, moments where she stood too close, smiled too warmly, looked too comfortable. Then the TikTok detectives showed up, stitching clips from RHOA, matching timelines, pointing out outfits, comparing backgrounds in photos, analyzing everything from body language to seating arrangements. Some TikTokers swore they saw emotional chemistry, others insisted she wasn't Todd's friend, but Kandi's.
This is not good girlfriend. This is Kandi's girl. They are doing, it's called The Past. Honey, they doing a lifetime. They sister wives, a child. I don't even know what you call it.
The theories kept multiplying. Was she Kandi's new companion? Was she Todd's? Was she both? Was she part of something deeper that fans weren't supposed to know? Nobody knew what was true, but the timing of her growing presence lined up a little too neatly with the period when Kandi and Todd's marriage started publicly fraying. Fatum disappeared from the public eye for a long time after her RHOA appearances. But she didn't disappear from the scenes around Kandi and Todd, not completely. People kept spotting small clues, subtle things, nothing confirmed, but just enough to keep the rumors alive. And once people started talking, the discussion spiraled. If the marriage already had distance, suspicion, and emotional drift, then adding a third person into that mix, whether intentionally or accidentally, was a recipe for trouble. But this wasn't the only reason the theory spread like wildfire, because the couple released a movie that made everything even messier. Kandi has always been open about being sex positive. She owns a brand built on it. She talks about it comfortably, and she once admitted that she and Todd experimented. She didn't hide it, didn't deny it, and didn't act embarrassed. But for many viewers, that admission stuck in their minds.
Keep moments to myself when I got upset so y'all would catch me crying. But in real life, I don't really like for those moments to be shared with the world.
Especially once the marriage started falling apart. Because when a couple opens their relationship in any way, even slightly, it can complicate things. Feelings get messy, attachments develop, boundaries blur. People step into the relationship who don't always step back out, and every rumor that came afterwards seemed to point to the same conclusion. Something about their arrangement shifted, and not in a harmless way. Some fans said Todd took advantage, using the openness as an excuse to do what he wanted when Kandi was out of town. Others believed Kandi made emotional connections during those same windows of opportunity.
And me being the Taurus that I am, I like to keep those moments to myself.
And the speculation didn't stop. Not when videos surfaced, not when TikTok montages analyzed every interaction, not when influencers dropped hints about what they heard from people close to the couple. The truth, nobody knows exactly what happened inside their private life, but the whispers were loud enough to echo across the internet for months. And these whispers got even louder when a certain movie entered the conversation, because suddenly fans believed the marriage was unraveling right in front of them, disguised as fiction. When Kandi and Todd produced The Pass, fans thought it was just another project, another fun storyline, another creative venture. But after the divorce news hit, people rushed back to the movie, rewatched scenes, and said the story felt a little too close to home. A movie about temptation, a movie about emotional drift, a movie about rules in a relationship being broken, a movie about trust snapping under pressure when outsiders become too involved. Fans started asking, was this art imitating life, or life imitating art? Some pointed out scenes where characters crossed boundaries that looked suspiciously similar to the rumors swirling around Kandi and Todd. Others said the film was practically a confession, a dramatized version of what might have been happening behind the scenes.
How many of y'all watched that movie, The Past? Well, I watched it last night. But that movie is so reminiscent of Kandi and Todd's relationship. Now, y'all know Kandi and Todd made this movie.
And once that theory stuck, people couldn't stop making comparisons. Clips from interviews showed Kandi laughing about how relationships evolve, Todd hinting at testing limits, Fatum popping up in photos around the same time frame the movie was in production. It was too perfect a storm for fans to ignore, but there was still one last piece. The moment everything finally broke, the moment the marriage crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Some marriages end quietly. This was not one of them. Behind the scenes, people close to the couple say the tension had been building for years. Long-distance issues, trust problems, arguments that circled the same wounds over and over. But insiders claim there was a final trigger. A moment when the distance between them became permanent. Maybe someone crossed a boundary with another person. Maybe a secret surfaced. Maybe the emotional disconnect became too obvious to ignore. Maybe they looked at each other one day and realized the marriage wasn't a partnership anymore.
Todd, thank you for surviving the blogs, the shade, the rumors, the lies, the truth, the almost fights, the actual fights, the reunions. You earned this award too. It's a scheme that Todd set up.
It was an obligation. Whatever happened, it pushed them past the point of repair. And what made it even harder was the very thing that once made them strong. They worked together, built together, lived in the same spotlight, untangling a life that intertwined every business, every paycheck, every creative project wasn't simple. Their separation wasn't just emotional, it was logistical, financial, social, and public. And yet, they still tried to keep everything quiet. No drama-filled statements, no public accusations, no messy back and forth online. But the fans filled the silence with theories because the story didn't feel finished. The mystery wasn't solved. People wanted answers that the couple refused to give. And now that the divorce is officially out in the open, everyone is watching to see what happens next. Because both of their futures look wildly different. Now that the split is undeniable, the world is looking toward the aftermath. Will Kandi return to RHOA for the first time in years just to clear the air? Fans are begging for it, convinced the real story is too explosive to stay hidden. Others think she'll channel everything into new music or a new show, using creativity as her way of reclaiming control of the narrative. Todd, meanwhile, faces a different path, rebuilding his identity outside of Kandi's orbit. Some fans feel sympathy.
Have replaced Todd. I promise to pick anyone that have a decent job.
Others say Mama Joyce was right from the beginning. The internet is split down the middle, arguing over whether he was a supportive partner or someone who benefited a little too much from the relationship. But regardless of where the rumors land, one thing is certain: 11 years of marriage don't disappear overnight. 11 years of building a life don't dissolve without leaving a mark. And 11 years of working, filming, traveling, raising kids, and navigating fame together create a story far more complicated than what the public sees. Maybe someday the truth will surface, in a memoir, an interview, or through quiet conversations years from now. But for now, the only thing anyone knows for sure is that this marriage didn't crumble from just one issue. It was a slow unraveling, a quiet fall, a series of small cracks that eventually became too big to hide. And that's why the internet is still obsessed with this story. Because behind the glam, the success, and the spotlight, something deeply personal went wrong. And people are trying to understand how a couple who seemed untouchable ended up here. Whatever happens next, one thing is clear: this wasn't the ending anyone expected. And the full truth? It may still be waiting to be revealed.